Hey everybody, Jess Intuitive Angel Healer here with your Grounded. Thank you so much for joining our podcast today and welcome to another episode of Your Angels Are Talking. Are you listening? Inspirational stories of angelic and universal miracles. This podcast is all about the magic that the universe contains and to help open your eyes and mind to the fact that we turn a blind eye to spirit. And this causes us to miss out on the joy and beauty each day holds. Abundance is all around us and comes in many different forms. But how often do we take time to count our blessings? Or just say thank you to the universe for waking us up today? Or just be content with the love in our souls? If you are wondering or asking yourself right now, how do I break up with fear and embrace the miracles of my angels so I can create the life that I desire? Well, the universe has brought you to the right podcast. Today, our special guest story may just turn you into a believer if you aren't already. So please welcome to our show special guest Peggy-Sweeney McDonald. She is from Life in the A Zone, which is her own personal podcast that she put out. She's also an author and actress. Welcome to our show today.
Oh, thank you so much, Jessie. I'm so glad I'm finally here with you. It's just an honor, and I just loved your opening. Wow, you touched upon so many things just in that opening introduction. So I'm blessed to have these conversations with you today.
Thank you. This is one of my favorite podcasts because I love miracles and angels, and that is a subject I can talk about forever because I love it so much. So that's why I know that this work was definitely meant for me. When you start chatting about something and that's all you want to do, you know that you're meant to heal. So I know that you have an amazing story of your journey to becoming Peggy as we know you now. So if you would just go ahead and share with us your journey of becoming of Life in the A Zone.
So listening to your introduction, it's like, wow, I mean, we're so aligned. You talked about the universe, having gratitude for the universe, and really seeing how the universe guides us to where we need to be. And this journey with Life in the A Zone has been just a miracle in so many ways. I had come back in 2016. My husband and I were living in Los Angeles, and I came back to Louisiana for Easter, and my mom was officially diagnosed with Alzheimer's during that visit. I was here in Louisiana for 2 weeks. I had been gone for 36 years. I graduated from LSU in 1980 and in theater, and then I moved to Houston and got my SAG card and did commercials and industrial films and commercial print, and then moved to New York. Struggled as an actress there, did a Burger King commercial and some off-Broadway theater, but I did meet my amazing husband, who's a New Yorker, Jimmy. And then we moved to New Orleans and got married there. See my parents and my family. I have 3 younger sisters in Baton Rouge. And then after 6 years, we moved to L.A. and we were there for 18, 19 years. And out there, I did some acting stuff, but then I ended up becoming an event producer. Meeting an event producer and had my own company, Superstar Events-L.A. And when the economy in 2007, 2008 really tanked, I actually started my own event called Meanwhile back at Cafe Du Monde, Life Stories About Food, where I invited chefs, actors, writers, musicians, all kinds of people, restaurant owners, baristas, I mean, all people from all walks of life to share a life story about food. And since it was about food, I did it in restaurants because I felt like you needed to eat and drink while you were hearing these stories. And I would have like 8 to 10 people share their life stories about food, and did the show across the country. And from that, I got a book deal with Pelican Publishing, and I have a book with 67 of the food stories. And it's not how to cook something. It's more about life stories with a thread of food. So my story is the title story, Meanwhile Back at Cafe Du Monde, all about no matter where I live, no matter what's going on in my life, I always end back at Cafe Du Monde in New Orleans in the French Quarter, taking life one beignet at a time. And so that is the title of the book by Pelican Publishing. And my story is in there along with 66 other people who've been in my shows. So I had been doing that, and then I was coming back and forth to Louisiana because I started the show here in 2010, the Meanwhile Back at Cafe Du Monde show. And I was starting to see my mom through the years, have some memory issues. And my sisters would call me in L.A. and say, oh my gosh, she just did this. And so my sister, Shannon, who's the attorney and always the voice of reason, she said, when you come back for Easter, we're all going to go see the neurologist. We're going to make an appointment. We're all going to go see what's going on. And so I came back, and the next day we all went, my 4 sisters, my dad, my mom, and myself. And my mom was officially diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Mm-hmm. And that same day, that afternoon, my husband was laid off. He called me from LA and said, that night, he said, I got laid off from my job. He was a stockbroker, a branch manager for a stock brokerage firm. And he said to me on that conversation, and all of this is in episode 1 of Life in the Ozone. It's called The Decision. And Jimmy said, well, it looks like the universe just made the decision for us to move back to Louisiana. And his father had died of Alzheimer's years before. So we kind of knew what was coming down the pipe, like it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. And I think he had lots of regrets of being so far away from his parents in New York when his father died and his mother died. They died 11 days apart. His mom had throat cancer. So seeing that and seeing the pain and grief he went through and I think a lot of it was not being in New York. So I had been telling Jimmy, I really felt like it was time for us to move back to Louisiana because life in LA had gotten to be really hard and tough. And it just felt like I was being drawn home. And so that day was the day that the universe made the decision for us to move back. And so I went back to LA, and over the next 3 months, we put our house up for sale, our condo in LA, and sold our house and moved back. And so we moved back to Louisiana and actually moved in with my parents and put our stuff in storage, thinking we were just going to be with them for a short time. But once we moved in with my parents, we saw my mom's memory deteriorating and how it was affecting my mom and my dad and how tough it was on my father. So we just felt like we really, needed to stay and be here with her. Began the journey, and we can move back August 2016. And she passed away July 2019. So we had 3 years, and they were tough years. We some lots of good times, and that's what I like to, you talked about gratitude and being grateful to the universe. I'm so grateful I had that time, especially after I hadn't lived here in 36 years, to be able to be of service to my mom and dad and be here, even though there were times I just didn't think I could take another day. It was really tough emotionally to watch someone you love just deteriorate. And she was very angry and mean, and it was tough. What happened was I kept thinking, I need to write a book. I need to write a book about these stories that, this journey of being here. Next miracle was after she passed away, I was very depressed. And every day I would look at my laptop. I would just look at my laptop and I'd go, I should start writing. And then I would go take a nap or eat something or cook or wash clothes or go for a walk or exercise, anything to avoid, writing. And of course my fear was oh, you're not a good writer. You can't do this, And then it was just a miracle that I opened the paper one day and the Louisiana Book Festival was coming up in 2 weeks. It was in November of last year, so it's not even a year. And they had an essay memoir writing class. It was a 3-hour class. And I thought, I should take that. Oh, I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know if I want to spend the money. It's only a 3-hour class. I had all these excuses, and I kept hearing, and I really believe that my mom is my biggest angel. And I feel like she was like, Peggy, go take that class. You'll feel so much better, and I was like, well, maybe that'll jumpstart me writing. So I went to the class that day. Cool. We had a cold front, and my father, because we're still living with my dad in this big house here in Baton Rouge, and he was going to be he had just had knee surgery a couple of weeks before, and so we went through that with him. And so I said, Dad, I think I'm going to take this class. He said, you should take the class. So that morning he came in and he goes, it's really cold outside. You're going to need a jacket. And I looked at the temperature. I was like, oh my gosh. So I put on makeup, and I put on a big sweater with some leggings and some boots and a cute little hat. And I just felt like alive again, like I felt like that little spark. And when I was walking to the class, I parked my car. It was downtown, and I parked my car in the garage. I was walking to the class, and I felt cute and sassy, and I hadn't felt cute and sassy in a long time.
I know that feeling.
And I just like, oh my gosh. And I went into the class, and I saw the list. I was the first one in there. That's how excited I was. I got there early, and I got some coffee. I ended up looking at the list of who was in the class, and the marketing director from Pelican Publishing, who had worked with me on my book, was in the class as going to be,
Wow.
a student in the class. And then the instructor came in, and she had just written an essay book called Things My Mother and I Never Talk About. And so we met, and she's from New York. She lives in New York. Her name is Michelle Fulgate, and she goes to NYU. And so I met her, and then there was only about 6 women in the class, and we went around the circle and this big table, and she said, okay, tell us why you're here. And I said, my mom died. I've been wanting to write this book about my journey back to Louisiana after 36 years, and all the lessons I learned, because there's so many lessons I learned about life and love and loss and laughter and finding the good things, the abundance in every day, and how it always looks different than what we think it looks. But now looking back, I'm like, oh, it's just been such a gift. So she prompted us, and she said, write down a list of I'm going to give you a writing prompt. She said, write down 10 things that you're embarrassed about, and then pick one. Well, one of those on my list was the way my mom dressed at the end, because my mom was typical Southern woman, matchy-match shoes, purses, clothing, beautiful clothing. And at the end, she'd come out in the morning, in mixed match clothes and pants inside out, clothes she had worn for days. And I was embarrassed, and my sisters and my nieces were embarrassed. They were like, why is she wearing that? She wore that yesterday.
It's hard when you are on the other side of that, because I started out my journey as before I became a spiritual grounding coach, I was a medical assistant. But before that, I was a CNA. So that's where I joined becoming a CNA, because my grandma died in 2008 in a nursing home of pneumonia. And that's my worst nightmare, because I loved my grandma, but I was young and I was traveling and I couldn't make it there. I was traveling on the road. And when she passed, and then I found out she passed from that, I was like, well, I'm the worst granddaughter in the whole wide world. Even though it wasn't my fault, but I felt the guilt. So I turned that guilt into, I'm going to go take care of other people and make sure that if they have to die in a nursing home, I'm going to be there to, they're not going to go out like how my grandma went out, so.
Yeah.
But it's hard when you don't understand, because I've taken care of some people. They are 2 people, clients for a reason. I had one lady that used to try to bite me in the morning, and there was no trying to put her shirt on her at all by herself. You better go in there with someone. She was literally 80 pounds, and that lady would bite you, kick you, everything because of, the best way to describe Alzheimer's is if you put shrink wrap around your brain and you just suck out all the air and you just keep going until it gets smaller and smaller. And that's going through all the training, because they make you go through the training of Alzheimer's and all that as a CNA and in the medical field. And that's why I like CNAs. They tend to know they're better at dealing with the whole thing versus a doctor's office, because they're more hands-on. They know that they're not doing this on purpose, but it's really hard when you're on the other side of it. You're like, can we not today? And you're like, nope, this is every day. It doesn't turn off.
Every day, I know. Well, and then in that class, she said, pick one thing so I wrote about it. And that story was the fashion show, and it's actually episode 7 of Life in the A Zone. I finally recorded that story. But that was the first story, and after I wrote it in the class for 15 minutes, we read ours, and when I read mine, I was crying. And I looked up at the end of it, and the instructor was crying, and so was all the other women in this class. And the instructor looked at me, said, Peggy, did you just write that? And I said, yes. She goes, oh my gosh, you're such a great writer. You have to write this book. It's going to help so many people. And then I left that class and I felt alive, Jesse. I felt like 20 pounds was lifted off my shoulder. I felt like I had purpose. I was excited. I felt inspired. And so I started writing these stories. And then with COVID happening and the pandemic, I just started seeing that people were doing, podcasting all of a sudden was like huge, and people were doing their podcast in their closets. And I was like, and I mentioned this is really another kind of the universe talking to me, and my mom and all my angels and spirit telling me what next to do. Because I started thinking that my publisher did coffee table cookbooks, and they really don't do memoirs. And the literary agent I had used doesn't do memoirs, so I was going to have to start from scratch with the book, and I just didn't have it in me to start doing query letters and a book proposal. And something told me these stories need to get out now, because I know I've been through the book journey. That's a 1.5 to 2 years down the line, and it's a lot of work. And I was like, maybe that'll come down the line later, but right now I think these stories need to get out, and why not do a podcast? And then I started thinking, I'm an actress, so when I do these stories, I'm going to put my heart and soul and lots of emotions in them because they're my stories. And I went to lunch on July 2nd. A friend of mine was from Atlanta, and one of her other best friends lives here in Baton Rouge, and so we met somewhere for like a social distant lunch at 4:00 in the afternoon at this restaurant when there's nobody around. And I mentioned to them, I said, I think I want to do a podcast. And my friend Jackie and Penny, they're like, that's a great idea. And Penny said, well, there's some guys in Baton Rouge that have a studio and they can help you. So I went home, I said, well, let me call those guys. So I called the guys, or sent them an email, and I set up an appointment. My birthday was July 21st. So July 1st was the first time I verbalized, I'm thinking it should be a podcast. And I never really even said that to my husband, or even really to myself. I just read about it in my mind. I had thought about it, but not, just kind of passing thought. And then when I verbalized it to them, and Penny said, call these guys in Baton Rouge. So I called this little studio, and I said, what, I want to make an appointment on July 21st. It's my birthday. And so they had time that day. So I went in and I taped 3 of the shows, and they edited the first 3 for me. But they edited that first one, and the next week it was launched. So the next week.
Yeah, it goes quickly.
Episode 1. So I had the idea on the 1st, made the appointment July 21st. And July 29th, the first episode was up. So it's not even, next week is 2 months. And I just launched episode 8 yesterday.
High five.
It's been an incredible, and there's people all over the world who've listened to it. And it's, it's very organic, very growing organically, and very grassroots, because someone will listen to it and go, oh, the coworker's mother was just diagnosed, or, oh, my aunt has Alzheimer's, I'm going to send it to my cousin.
You'll never run out of listeners, ever.
Yeah, my niece's husband last night told me he that just recommended it to some woman at his job whose mother was just diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So yeah, it's been a great journey. And when I was looking for like other podcasts for Alzheimer's, I saw a bunch of like expert interviews or interviews with caregivers like myself, but there wasn't anything that was kind of like a podcast series from the beginning till, well, eventually, we know what happened. My mom did pass, but there wasn't really anything like a podcast series like this. And I just thought it's going to be different, and it's pretty special. And I had no idea what I was doing, but now like I have a little studio, got a microphone, I have the Audacity software, so I'm like editing it myself, and I do send it to a cleanup sound editor that adds the sound effects and stuff because I don't have time to learn that right now.
It's a
But
lot
I
of
do,
work to do
yeah,
it.
but I do like they're all like the shortest one, Meatball Madness, which is a crazy, funny family story when my mom decided she wanted to make her meatballs, but my mom never made meatballs. She made meat sauce. And so the whole thing was like a fiasco. And she got mad at me because I told her she was chopping the celery too big. And she stormed off. And I ended up having to make the meatballs. And I've never made meatballs in my life. And so it's a really funny story, Meatball Madness. If you want a short little taste of life in the A Zone, that one's only like 12 minutes. But most of them are like 20, 25 minutes. And I tape it, but I tape different takes. And so then I cut and paste like the best part of this sentence, paragraph and this paragraph. And so I do that, and that is very time consuming. And then, once you launch it, then the marketing, and then you got to work on the next one. So, I mean, I'm learning that it is a full-time job here, but it's
Yes.
touching so many lives, and it's touching my family's healing from it. I'm healing from these stories, and I hope that other people will be able to heal, because I don't just tell the bad thing, all the bad and decline. I talk about a lot of childhood memories,
Nice.
and then find the little victories in the day, each day. So
And
it's been really uplifting in a lot of ways.
And I think that's very important. And I try to do that with my podcasts, especially like I have this one. I have a miracles podcast. One of my guests, he actually discussed one day that he really lost it and he was going to go take his own life in the woods. And that's a very powerful subject, but I try to, when I bring everyone on here, no matter what the subject is, and that's how I can tell, because that I'm a light worker, because I can tell a lot of people, I don't feel that it is very productive. It's not very productive to just sit there and like you go in these groups, and that's what I've found on my journey is a lot of people go to groups to try to find help, and support. But when they go in these groups, every post is why me, why my life, instead of like, hey, this happened, but this also happened, and putting both of the
Yes.
good and the bad. And I actually had to come up on this problem in one of my groups. I have a Pisces group, and I just, every day that I got in there, it's like I went to go approve the post and everything was Sally Sad Pants. And I was like, look, you guys have been in here for 4 years and you're talking about the same stuff. I can find the same post 4 years ago. Like, this is not productive. You're in the same space. So maybe, and I literally had to get on there and be like, if you're coming here to vent or drop off your feelings or make us feel sad, you're going to have to go somewhere else with that, because we're all about, I understand. I've always been like this, I've had a crazy life from since I was born. It's not all been bad and it's not all been good, but it's been my life. So I'm gonna feel proud about it. But I hate it when people just talk about the bad stuff, because there's always a light in everything that we do. Sometimes we just don't see that light because it's not what our personal egos or our personal self wanted to see. We didn't get our way, so we're like, the world hates us. No, you just didn't get your way. And sometimes it's been very enlightening going on this journey. And I'm a mom too. I have a 9-year-old. So it even helps me, because for all those times that I wasn't kind enough and, too short with my daughter and didn't let her get it out, guess what the universe is doing back to me now? So it's funny now that I've even changed my parenting style of things that I thought I would never do. And I'm more about choices and talking about it and telling her it's your choice if you want to do X, Y, and Z. But don't come back to me when I told you not to do it. And then that's a whole nother conversation. So I felt so bad for a lot of my and then you come to that, if you can't overcome it and you don't have the means to let them move in with you because you don't have someone to watch them there, then you have to make that decision of, do I put them in the nursing home? And then when you put them in the nursing home, the patients' families really loved me because I could feel that guilt, and they didn't want it this way, but it had to be this way for safety, because even with a whole lockdown unit, I've seen some patients get out of there because they're on a mission and they're like
yeah.
MacGyvering it out of the place. And you're like, Sally, why are you outside? What the? And so I understand it. So guys, if you are dealing with a parent, a loved one, anybody in your family that has Alzheimer's, don't beat yourself up. It is not either one of your faults. It's a disease, and it's an unfortunate disease, but no amount of guilt is going to make you feel better. So just try to roll with it and have a sense of humor, kind of like Peggy did.
Absolutely. I don't know. We did have to move my mom to memory care eventually the last 5.5 months of her life. It was a huge decision and we fought it. My sister, the voice of reason, kept, saying it's time. And my dad and I were like, no. But it came to the point where there was a breaking point that you just knew that you could no longer protect her. And so we had to make that decision. Yeah, and I thank God that my mom didn't keep struggling with this, because I think the whole COVID, the pandemic, what's going on with the memory cares and nursing homes is really sad that the family can't go visit them. And, I know that a lot of them were keeping them in their rooms initially at the beginning of the pandemic. They weren't, doing all the social things in the community room and stuff. And I just think my mom would have hated every minute of that. So
because they don't understand. When you have Alzheimer's, you're not going to understand why you have to be on a computer.
And if we weren't able to go see her, that would have just been just horrible. So yeah.
So there's another miracle your angels did for you.
There was so many miracles. Yeah, so many miracles. I really think that she is helping me helps me write these stories. I feel like she's right behind me, encouraging me to tell the stories and to be honest. And I just see how all the lessons she taught me about life, because my mom had a huge love of life and great laugh, and she always was for the underdog, and she never met a stranger that she didn't become best friends with. Even like we'd go shopping and the saleswomen, she talked to them about their lives, and everybody loved her. Even all the people at the memory care unit were and they loved my mom and she loved them. I mean, they took such great care of her, and they were always hugging her and telling her how much they loved her and she loved them. And so even when I'd go visit her, I'd see her smile and her spirit still there, even though she was getting weaker and weaker and not eating anymore and just really going downhill fast. But whenever they came around, she would perk up and I just saw her heart was always her brain may have shrunk, but her heart didn't. I think her heart kept expanding.
Exactly. My grandpa got diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and my grandmother took care of him, and he was a very man's man. So he was in his 80s, and I don't know if you know this or not, but they say the first signs of somebody who's going to be getting Alzheimer's is when they sit there on the side and they start doing this with their thumbs. They start flipping their thumbs together and like holding their hands. And my grandmother told me this because she noticed my grandfather started doing that one day. And she was like, what's he doing? And then he finally got the diagnosis of Alzheimer's. And since he was a man's man, he grew up in the Depression. He's always worked. He was an auto upholsterer. He had his own shop, everything. And at the end, my grandmother had to hide the keys from him because he wouldn't let her drive. And she gave him a fake set of keys because he wouldn't stop. And I think he got lost one day driving. And she just said he never did that again. Because he really scared himself, like, oh my God, where am I? Even though he's in a small town, but it's a whole journey to take somewhere with dementia versus Alzheimer's is like, I understand it takes a very special person to understand all this. And I know that you have a purpose here, and your mom, even though she's passed, I can feel her be with you because my dad's also passed, and I can feel all my people that, you know, I thought I just lost them, and they're doing me better now that they're upstairs
On
because
the
I
other
can feel
side.
all of
Oh,
them.
I think so.
And when I get on people's, like if I get run across somebody who's not on the, like a podcast, who's not a very good podcast for me to be on, but they're trying to talk me in, you know, just to get their ratings, I've noticed they literally come in and mess up the whole podcast. They're like, nope, you will not be explaining my daughter today. Thank you. And I love it that I don't understand it sometimes, but I've really noticed if you're not that great of a person, for some reason the static gets crazy and it just drowns out all the audios. So when I start hearing that, I'm like, maybe I need to go. It's weird how you get all these signs and you never thought about it before. But when you have a loved one pass over, I love all the signs. We're going to see some cool things from you.
Well, and we also feel that static inside our mind with, I think, our fear. And, you know, when you can get quiet, and that's what I think the pandemic is, everyone has had to get quiet and be with themselves.
Good.
And all their stuff bubbles up, and you can take that stuff and either deal with it, or you can shove it aside. And, you know, many days I wanted to eat my feelings through the whole thing with my mom, and many days during the pandemic, you know, I wanted to eat my feelings. I was able to get quiet and listen, go take that class, Peggy, start writing these stories. And I wrote 66,000 words. I have 24 chapters already written, and maybe one day it'll be a book. There's a lot of things I haven't.
Eventually it will.
I haven't done the shows that put in the podcast, and I would say for the book, you know, just getting quiet and listen to that intuition, that spirit, that angels telling me, you know, do a podcast, do these stories, do a podcast, and then not listening to the fear that's like, oh, I don't know how to do that. I don't have money to do that. Or, you know, what am I thinking? And then like just listening to, you can do this. You need to do this. These stories need to get out now. You don't need to wait a year and a half, 2 years down the line for a book. Do this now and just give this gift to the world. And it's, my heart's kind of crying. My heart's just really full every time, you know, I put these out. Like yesterday, the one I launched yesterday came out, and like I'm already getting all these, like it's called A Basket of Memories, and it's about the last Easter with my mom when she was still here, and decorating, finding all this box of decorations, Easter decorations in the attic, and going down and decorating the house with her, and she loved it. And then it's about our Easter Sunday and the family traditions. And I tell lots of memories of growing up. We used to go get our little Easter dresses with the little white patent leather shoes and the little gloves and hats and little purses. And so I tell a lot of those memories, and it's just a cute, light, fun story. But like the last story was the fashion show, the one I had originally wrote. And it was very painful. And at the end of it, I mean, a part of it, the story, I started crying when I was recording it. And, you know, Jesse, I could have stopped and hit pause and gained my composure, but I just kept going. I just kept going until it was, and I just kept going. And there was a part where I say in my story, I say the serenity prayer, God grant me the serenity. And I said it as if I really didn't mean, and I rushed through it because, and it was how I felt at that point that day. Like I had no wisdom, I had no courage, but I still said it. I still said the word.
Exactly.
And in the podcast, the fashion show, you can hear me crying, and then you can hear the desperation of like, I don't have any courage right now. I don't have any wisdom right now. I'm empty. I feel I'm lost. And I left all of that in the podcast, and it's kind of it's painful to hear. It's painful when I hear it, but people are relating to that because so many people who are being caregivers, that's how they feel, but they're embarrassed to say, you know, I just don't know if I can do this. But you have to keep showing up, you know, and you're stronger than you think. I mean, looking back, I go like, oh my God, I did have courage. I did have wisdom. And now on the other side of it, I have even more. And I'm so grateful that I had those 3 years with my mom, the good and the bad. And, you know, I would take a bad day today.
with your
I would
mom.
take one of those toughest days just to have a day with her.
And I can feel that whole sentiment because my dad was an alcoholic when I was a kid, and he had anger problems. And so he spent his whole life trying to suppress his pain. And he died when I was 16, and he never got to say goodbye to me because I was at school. And I got the news broken to me by my mom's boyfriend, who I don't like him. I don't like him. I've still tried to let go of that one. I think I've almost let go of it. But it was really hard for this man to tell me, oh, when I walked through the door, hey, by the way, your dad died. Just want to break that news to you. And so it really, I found out why I ran into a lot of my problems. I created it because, I'm an intuitive. Ever since my dad died, I've had dreams about him, and they used to be nightmares. Like I would wake up right when he was going to talk to me, and I was afraid he was going. It just tripped me out because I know when I do that, I've had a lot of people who die who come to my dreams and talk to me, and it freaks me out because I know that it's really happening. Even it's not a dream; it's like more of an astral projection. And now that I've been working since that day, I don't have the nightmares no more. And now that I'm an intuitive, I've had my dad come in spirit so much to literally like mess with the TV, mess with stuff on the walls, just to get my attention. And we're finally, because people don't realize when people pass, if they pass with guilt and shame and all that stuff, they can't fix it in their past life. They have to fix it. That's why we come down here to fix well, that's my belief anyways. I believe in reincarnation, and I believe that we come down here to fix all these lessons that we've been running away from for all these eternities. Yeah. And when you pass over, and James Van Praagh is a very good person to understand mediumship, and reading his books, I've noticed if you hold on to that shame or you don't forgive someone for what they did when they were living, they're stuck to you by the hip now. Let it go, let them free. And I think it's awesome that, even though you lost your parent, you can celebrate her with this. And that's why all my podcasts came out too, because I actually recorded my story. It's at the very beginning of this podcast. I know everybody loves to make up what they think my life is. So I decided, hey, everybody's got their own version. Why don't I put the real version out there? And I taped it, and it was you could feel the emotions in it. You could feel all of it. It was awesome because I felt my dad was there because it was really hard for me to say all that stuff. But I'm like, what, at this point, I've been living behind a curtain my whole life, trying to pretend none of that stuff was there. So here it is, world. Hope you're ready. I don't hide anymore. And I love it. And that's basically what I feel that our parents do when we lose them in spirit. Now you don't have to hide because you know what? Like, nothing else matters. Just do you and do what makes you happy. And because life is precious. Watching somebody deteriorate from any kind of disease will totally give you that inspiration, hopefully, to not take life for granted and to be anything but happy. Like I said, I love your spirit, and I could chat with you about this forever just because I love how happy it is, and you just got a really nice spirit coming and talk about this. And your mom is very proud of you for all that you're doing because you're honoring her very well. This is like the best remembrance you could do for a parent.
Oh, thank you so much, Jessie. That means so much to me. You're going to make me cry.
Do you find yourself being more optimistic and less confined by fear since your experiences? What are some examples of how this set you free to really just start being authentically you?
I love that you're talking about being authentically you, because I'm in a little group right now, and we're doing the Simple Abundance book. Do you know the Simple Abundance book? And it's a year, and this month, September, is all about being authentic. And
Spirit's talking to you.
being authentic and really stepping out. Like, you know, they're like, no crap. Now is the time to do what you love. And I'm able, through doing this, I'm able to take all that past, like being the actress and it not happening, trying to be somebody else. Now all I'm doing is I'm being me. Like, I don't need to pretend to be somebody else. I don't need to try to go out there to be an actress and try to pretend to be somebody else. I'm telling my story. I'm being Peggy. And all those years as an actress, it was like, oh, you're too young, you're too old, you're too fat, you're not fat enough, you need better pictures, you need a better agent, you need a better acting teacher. You know, it's like trying to find that recipe for success that I never really could attain. And I would get like a little break and I'd think, oh, this is it, this is going to lead to something else. And so I got out of that rat race, and then I was in the event world and was creating events for other people, for companies, for nonprofits, and putting all my creative energy and helping them with their events and for their cause. And now here I am, because I created Meanwhile back at Cafe Du Monde. That was a wonderful thing, but I also depended on other people to share their stories. I invited other people. I've had 400 people, and including 45 sixth graders at a charter school in Woodland Hills,
Wow.
California. We did the show with them and they wrote their food stories. But now this is me. This is my stories. And I don't have to try to be somebody else. I don't have to pretend.
Awesome, huh?
The good, the bad, the charming, the not so charming, the Southern Belle, the not so, you know, sweet, everything. Like, I just can throw myself into it and just be as authentic. And I think that's what makes it really special. I had this friend, this old friend who had cast me and was a director and producer of commercials years and years and years ago. And he reached out to me and we hadn't talked in like forever. And he's like, he listened to the podcast and he said, and this guy did, you know, huge national commercials and stuff. And he said, Peggy, what's so great about it is it's so authentic and real. And he said, don't change anything. He said, the production value is wonderful. And he said, don't let anyone tell you to change it. You know, just do what you're doing and keep doing what you're doing, because it's about the heart and it's your stories. And that's what makes it so beautiful. And I was like, wow, it's so, yeah, you know, and so I've heard some people have said, oh, well, you know, are you getting constructive criticism, how to do it better? And maybe you need to ask this person or that person how to, and I'm like, I'm going to ask somebody else how to tell my story. Seriously. Like, I'm telling, and you know, it's like, I don't need that. I don't need
Well, you know what they say about opinions, right?
I know. I was like, if I meet somebody else who is a storyteller podcasting, who's sharing their story about their mother with Alzheimer's, well, maybe they could give me a tip. But I am just, this is my heart and my soul, and I'm putting it out for the world. And if you don't like it, you don't have to listen to it. But this is who I am. And at this point in my life, I mean, I turned 62.
Awesome. Happy birthday.
Thank you. And I was like, at this point in my life, it took me a long time to get to the point where I'm like, here I am, world. You're going to see it. If you don't like it, you don't have to listen, turn it off. But if you do like it, please share, because I think there's somebody out there who needs to, it's like I'm pulling the veil off of the caregiver. Like,
exactly.
We don't have to pretend to be strong when we're not. You know, I really do want to, I think I want to teach a writing class about writing through grief, and not just writing the bad stuff, writing the beautiful stuff. Finding the little victories in each day. Even the toughest days have a little victory. They have a spark of hope. They have a spark of passion. They have a spark of love. They have a spark of sunshine. They have a spark of nature. You can find a spark in every day.
Exactly.
A spark of sunshine. You know, since I was a kid, I always signed everything love and sunshine, Peggy. It's like, where's that little spark of sunshine? It may just be like a chocolate chip cookie and a glass of milk.
Yes.
You know, and you sat down and watched your favorite Netflix show for even 10 minutes. as a caregiver, you don't have time, or, it was so funny. This is crazy but somebody from Purdue University, a grad student, reached out to me and interviewed me yesterday. So she saw my press release was on Newswire, and she saw it, and they're doing this. They're trying to put together a program to help caregivers
Nice.
with Alzheimer's and dementia patients. And so she interviewed me yesterday, this beautiful young woman, and she said, what would you tell people? And I was like, if caregivers who are going through this journey right now, and I was like, do a little yin yoga, 5 minutes, breathing, meditation, go for a walk just around down the block and back. If you have, if you can get somebody to for you, and just to like breathe, just sit and put your hand on your heart and just breathe and just center yourself. Because just putting your hand on your heart and taking a few breaths. And minister I had out in L.A., he taught me this meditation, and it's like you just breathe and say, God is the love that I am. God is the love that I am. And so when I do that, I kind of do, God is the peace that I am. God is the talent that I am. Whatever I need to like feel like is in my heart, and I need to expand. Like God,
and that helps you get centered.
God is the grace that I am, but God is the love that I am. God is the sunshine that I am. And just breathing and saying that over and over until your mind can get to a still spot. And then you can just be.
Exactly.
And know that, just be and know that I am God, right? Just be and know that I am God. And just be and listen to what's next. Spirit to give you the strength to keep moving forward.
And as a caregiver, it's really about self-care, and that's what I was going to ask you about it, but you've already told us your self-care, because that is the biggest thing that I like to include in these shows is how do you do self-care, because I teach self-care. That's my biggest thing for my coaching program is I'm a spiritual grounding coach. I actually have my clients do a 1 hour of power. The biggest thing is everybody says I don't have time. Now, you not having time and you not scheduling time are two different things. So I tell people with your hour of power, you do 30 minutes in the morning and you do 30 minutes at night. And that's when you wake up and when you go to bed. If you can get up 30 minutes in the morning and schedule yourself half an hour before everyone else wakes up to drink your coffee. I don't advise to watch news or social media during this time. I actually advise to listen to music, listen or journal, whatever makes you be in your little peaceful moment of Zen. If it's sitting on your porch, drinking your coffee, watching the sunrise, whatever it is, but give yourself that 30 minutes before your house wakes up, because your brain needs to be equipped before you go and deal with all the rest of the people in your world. And then at night, do the same thing and do it 30 minutes before you go to bed and journal about the day. Listen to music, get all that stuff out, because you don't want to go to bed with it, because guess what you're going to do? You're going to get up in the morning and you're just going to bring all that mess with you. And then that's when you feel that you're in this vicious cycle of being stuck. So it's all about having a self-care program and self-care is not selfish, and self-care is not just going and getting your nails done and getting a pedicure. All that is part of self-care. It's not the only thing. But it's very, very important. And they have respite programs out there. They're hard to find sometimes. I know if you check with your churches, but if you are feeling overwhelmed, don't try to be the hero and don't try to keep just going. Ask for help. We have to learn to ask for help, because a lot of people get frustrated, and even though I've seen people that caregiver burnout because they're doing too much. So it's just like a job. If you get to that point, you're actually helping your loved one more by going and asking help. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean that you don't care about your loved one. It means that you care more about your loved one. Kind of like if you're a parent and you're just out of it and you need a break. That's why they have respite in emergencies for daycare. So I learned that when my ex got put in the hospital. I was going out of my mind because he got diagnosed with diabetes, and he had a 500 blood sugar, and he had to have a colonectomy. So yeah, that was a pretty fun week.
Oh my
And
God.
that, being a caregiver myself, but then giving it for your family is two totally different things. Going to work and being a caregiver, so totally different than going at home and being a caregiver, because you have that personal relationship. So now a lot of people carry up their resentments and stuff, from when their parent was young, and they don't remember that anymore because they're going through that. So that's the other side of the Alzheimer's, that a lot of people they feel like they get stuck with their parent, and they unfortunately go with that resentment. And if you feel that way, talk to someone. You're not a bad person. I just want to get that out there, because I have started out my career in the nursing home in 2008, and I stayed there till about 2012, off and on. And I noticed that's the biggest thing, is everybody wants to be the hero, because they feel like if they let somebody else help, they're gonna carry this guilt. Don't carry that guilt, because it's not your fault. And I just really want to make that a point. It is not your fault. And, talk to Peggy. If you're having issues out there, get a hold of her. And I'm sure she would love to share, even a
Yeah.
message of, hey, it's okay. Because that's sometimes what we need, is it's not your fault, and it's okay, and things are going to get better. And I'm a big believer in affirmation. So yeah, that's one of my daily thing is, don't, if you affirm the worst, you just manifested it.
Yeah.
You can manifest good and bad. Always remember that. But thank you so much for being a part of our show today. I love your stories, and I love your whole journey. When I went to go look up all your information, I was like, wow, she has such a beautiful, well-rounded story. I love that. Most important takeaway you would have for our audience about the power of spirit and the beautiful miracles that it contains.
Our hearts are bigger than anything. The love that we have to give, at the end of, they say at the end of your life, you're not going to be able to bring anything but what's inside of you. And we have more to give, more to share, and sharing our experience, strength, and hope with others. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be a podcast. It doesn't have to be a television show. It doesn't have to be a YouTube video. There's people all around, and just in your community or your neighbors, or just like, always smiling at somebody, and you never know what their day is going to be about. And sharing your story opens people to share their story. And if you can be open and honest and have the courage to really say what's going on with you, then other people will open up and share what's going on with them. And I think the whole world will be a better place if we all just say we all need each other, all you need is love, and we all need love. And it's just coming from a heart-centered place instead of in our heads, because our heads will find so many excuses not to share who we really are and try to be something that the universe. And I went through that for years and years, trying to be someone that, I wasn't. Now I'm finally because of my mom bringing me home and saying, you need to do this. I know she told me you need to do this. And now I'm doing it. And, I'm tired. I'm exhausted. It's tough. It's a lot of work. But it's so rewarding, especially, because my friends and family, of course, love the podcast, and my mom's friends feel like I'm keeping her spirit alive. But really is what touching is when I get messages from you or other people who don't know me, and they hear part of my story, and they're like, I had somebody reach out to me on Instagram who has his own podcast, and he told me that he listened to a couple, and he's decided that his family's going to sit around after dinner and get their snacks and listen to my podcast. And I was like, wow, thank you. That makes me feel so good. And this is somebody who doesn't know me. He doesn't have a past with me, but, he heard them, and it touched him in some way. And now he wants to share the stories with his family. I have a neighbor whose daughter has 2 little girls. And she said every Wednesday they listen to my podcast when it comes out on the way to school, and the little girls love it. And another friend of mine told me, she goes, I'm not a caregiver, but I just love your stories, Peggy, because you just have so much to say about life and love. And I think that's that's where people can identify with heart, with love.
Love conquers all.
Being honest, and maybe I'm saying things that other people feel, and maybe it'll give them permission to tell their stories, and that's what it's all about. We all need each other, and I'm so grateful that you reached out to me, and here I am today, and we're talking about this, and that you went through so much with your dad. His spirit's with you, and I'm just really grateful. My heart is really full. So
I'm
thank you.
happy to have you on here because Spirit has, when I put this together, I didn't really know that podcasts really aren't interviewing style. I didn't make this podcast to impress anyone, and I came out here because I have stories that need to be shared, and I'm a very big, since I have lived so much trauma in my life between everything, that I'm a very big advocate of the underdog and women's right, like women that are in bad relationships and are told that that's all that they're worth. So that's my biggest thing. That's why I brought these out here, is because I want people to know, hey, I've had so much criticism since I started this with people in my life that because I'm an angel intuitive, which isn't that weird if you've known me. I've always been a little off, and you're like, what about that girl? But when I told everyone, I thought everyone would embrace me, and instead they went the other way and told me how weird I was and that my subject isn't popular. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and put this out there for the ones that feel the same way as me. And it's amazing how many people I meet every day that obviously go through the same thing. So I'm very proud that I went over my ego and didn't worry about fitting in with everyone. And I came out, and I literally started this in August, and I'm going to be wrapping up my 10th episode for the season on both podcasts, The Miracles and The Toxic Shadows. So
Wow,
I
that's
think
incredible. That's incredible, because I'll have 2 months next week, and getting ready to launch the 9th one next week. But we just have to be authentic and listen to our own hearts and not listen to anybody else. And just their opinions are great. If people don't want to listen,
earmuffs, I'm going to put them on, and my blinders, and you're either on my train or you're not on my train.
Yeah, I love that. And, the Peggy train and the Jesse train, it's so funny you said that, because one of my friends, Jenny in L.A., used to always say, I'm on the Peggy train. And everybody wants to be on the Peggy train, but no one wants to help push it forward. I don't need anybody to help me push it forward now. I'm pushing it forward myself. And if someone wants to listen or not, or support me or ignore me, it's fine, because I know that my story is going to reach the people that it needs to reach.
Exactly. How can our viewers reach you if they would like to get in touch with you, listen to your podcast?
Yeah. So the podcast, Life in the A-Zone, Life in the A-Zone podcast is, Podbean is my platform, but it's also it's on Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Stitcher, YouTube, and just Amazon Music, and hopefully soon Pandora. So it's pretty much on all the podcast platforms out there. And then I do have a website. It's lifeinthea-zone.com. And if you want you can reach me there. My email's there, my phone number's there. You can get on my mailing list. And I have a Facebook page, Life in the A-Zone Podcast, and an Instagram, Life in the A-Zone Podcast, and Twitter, Life in the A-Z. Life in the A-Z, no dash. So find me and and listen, and please write a little review and star it and follow it, because I appreciate the help, and share it if you know anyone who's gone through this journey, whose mother or grandmother or grandfather or husband or father or wife has been diagnosed, or even a coworker. Share Life in the A-Zone podcasts with them, because I think they will find some hope and some strength in these stories.
Thank you so much, Peggy, for being here today. I truly appreciate you being on our show.
Thank you, Jessie. I really have loved the opportunity. It's just wonderful. And I love your light and energy, and I love what you're doing. So we just got to keep listening to our angels and our intuition, and know we're being guided and that everything is exactly where we're supposed to be.
Exactly. I couldn't have said it better. Well, there you have it, beautiful souls. Another powerful hour of angelic miracles that you have just personally witnessed. I have goosebumps. My angels are definitely surrounding this beautiful podcast, and I would like to express my gratitude to all the archangels, my spirit team, and my creator as we wrap up our podcast and say thank you. Thank you for always being there for me, even when I had a hard time believing. Thank you. And thank you, beautiful souls, for tuning in to another miracle-filled episode of Your Angels Are Talking. Are you listening? Inspirational stories of angelic and universal miracles. Tune in next week to share in on more of the love and miracles that our angels create for us daily. This is Just Intuitive Angel Healer sending all of you beautiful souls love and light out there and healing angel vibes. Until we meet again next time, take care. Love and light, everybody.